Hey everybody, we're just about ready to get started here. I'm sure we'll have a couple of stragglers coming in. But thank you today for coming. Thank you very much. Today we're going to have a fantastic presentation by Alan Spadafora of Circle Forestry and Darren McAvoy. Darren is an associate professor of forestry from Utah State University. He's been in the forestry industry and the firefighting industry for decades. So it's going to be real great to lean on their interest, their history, and their experience. And Alan has recently joined the world of biochar, so it's really fantastic to see him coming along. And Darren McAvoy is the inventor of the big box biochar kiln. So we've got a lot of innovators here, and we'll start out with Mr. Allen. Come on in.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming out here, checking out the talk. Yeah, I've been in the, my name is Alan Spadafora. I'm the co-founder of Circle Forestry and Circle Soil. Circle Forestry, we do wildfire mitigation work, forestry consulting, trying to lower the carbon footprint of those through integrating biochar production into our forest management practices. And Circle Soil is a premium houseplant soil brand coming soon to everywhere that you guys are, hopefully, to plant shops, nurseries. It's basically a soil brand that we're trying to just get the word out about biochar to the average consumer, because a lot of folks in this room, I'm sure, have heard about biochar before, but the average Joe has no idea. I graduated from Plymouth State University in New Hampshire with an environmental science and policy degree and a minor in geography and GIS. I'm currently a certified wildland firefighter. Most recently was on the Stoner Mesa fire in outside of Dolores, Colorado. And I've been conducting fuels work and prescribed fire in Summit County, Utah, and kind of beyond for the last 5 years, since 2020. So yeah, this is a photo actually I took on the Stoner Mesa fire when I was at my little camp there. It was kind of cool. The iPhones are getting crazy these days. But yeah, anyways, the kind of overview of this talk is I'm going to try to shed some light on some of the current fuels management practices that I see most commonly in mountain communities and in my community, and some of the associated challenges with those projects. Offer a solution, integrating biochar. And offering a millennia-old practice to shape the future of how we manage our forests. And then also inspire thought. I see a lot of, in my industry, talking to HOAs and large land managers. It is a huge cost, dollar amount to do some of just the fuels reduction work. I mean, many of you probably know. But when we start integrating biochar into it, we're really trying to get people to look at it as more of an investment into that land for hundreds of years, and an investment into the recreation that we're all living in these mountain communities for. So yeah, some of you probably know about a lot of these, a lot of the different management practices out there. These are obviously not the only ones. There's many more, but these are the most common I see in the mountain communities. So, cutting and chipping. Cutting and piling and burning, and then lop and scatter. And lop and scatter is a lot more commonly used in the ski resorts. Basically, it's just when you go in and you thin and limb up the trees, and then you leave it on the forest floor, and the snowpack really packs it down. And it's very popular with ski resorts because it is a way to glade trails and create good skiing terrain very easily, because they don't necessarily need to worry about the slash when it's covered under, hopefully, a lot of snow. But yeah, so chipping. Who here's seen a chipper? Who here's heard a chipper? Okay. Who here's worked around a chipper? Oh wow. Okay, a lot of folks. Yeah, it's not pleasant. It's a very intense. It's a very intense tool. And yeah, I mean, it does have some pros though. So smoke. There's no smoke impact to the community. That's one major benefit to it. We can do it all summer long. So there's a lot of operational flexibility with using chippers. And it actually immediately reduces the surface fuel hazard, which is not something to write off, right? When we go in and we remove the surface fuels by hand and we run it through a chipper and broadcast it onto the landscape, we're not going to see the same fire behavior that we were before. So that is a huge benefit of using chippers, is it right away restructures the fuels in a safer way. Cons of chipping, noise pollution, right? That's something like, a lot of these neighborhoods, they've got chippers running through them all year, all summer long, and it's disruptive. Risk to workers, the folks in the room who have worked around chippers, how many people have had a friend who's been injured by a chipper in some way, small or big? We got one in the back there. Yeah. Over the last 6 years, I've seen 4 injuries on job sites, varying from, a hospital trip that was a broken hand, all the way to, just getting whacked in the shoulder. But somebody also got a separated shoulder from getting hit by a log that was being fed through a chipper. So they are extremely violent machines. Negative impacts to soil. That's a huge one. A lot of times, we chip and we broadcast it back out on the landscape, but we can really only pile about 4 inches max in those areas. And if anybody's seen these piles of, chips around, they're a lot deeper than 4 inches, and there's not really much that's going to be able to grow back. We're essentially depriving the soil of oxygen at that point. And we're losing that long-term storage potential, right? So we're turning trees that are, relatively long-term store of carbon, and we're chipping that, and we're essentially releasing all of that carbon very, very quickly. It's some of the. I'm not a researcher, so I don't have all of the science and the data associated with the different emissions, but it's around 3.2 to 3.5 tons of carbon when you chip and broadcast it onto for every ton of input into that chipper and you broadcast it out on the landscape, we're looking at 3 to 3.5 tons of carbon equivalent release, because most of that comes out in methane, which most of you know is a much more potent greenhouse gas. So these massive piles that we might see all around, those things are just bleeding methane. Like, they're just really pumping it out there. Pile burning. Who here lives in a community that pile burns? Okay, yeah, a lot of folks. All right. Pile burning traditionally was done for a long time on Forest Service land, BLM land agency folks, right? Firefighters can go and carry out these sort of things, but we're definitely seeing it used increasingly in the wildland-urban interface on private lands by private fire practitioners. That's what I have been doing in Summit County for the last, since 2020. So done roughly, I've in the Park City area, I've probably burned about, I'd say 3,000 to 5,000 piles in the last, or managed crews that burn that many piles. This is a very popular tool. So pros to pile burning, right? It's a very, from a labor cost perspective, it's probably one of the more efficient ways to remove or to get rid of the fuels, especially on steep slopes. But we have a very high control when it's in that pile scenario, right? This photo was taken in Park City, and you can see this is a spring burn, I think, so we've got probably 3 or 4 inches of snow still on the ground around it. So we're not really that worried about escape with pile burning. Not so much, especially in the fall. But they're very efficient on steep terrain. Like, this is in Pine Brook, Utah. That's probably approaching 30-degree slope. You can pile on very steep slopes, right? Crews can hike saws in there, they can cut, but taking it out of the woods or getting equipment into that steep of terrain just doesn't work. So we need to have a way to get rid of this biomass, and pile burning does do it very, very fast. The only problem is that it releases all the carbon and all the emissions, and that's not obviously what we're all trying to go away from. And it can be done relatively close to people's homes. So this is a property that's in Pine Brook also. You can see in the bottom right corner of my photo here, we're probably only about 100 to 150 feet uphill from these folks' homes. So we can be doing this work, right in the wild and urban interfaces in people's backyards, and it's relatively safe and very efficient. From a labor perspective. Some of the cons for the folks who are living around pile burning, does it get frustrating sometimes when there's smoke, for days after, days and days after pile burns taking place. It's definitely a huge issue. I mean, pile burning, especially the way that we leave piles overnight, and it's releasing a lot of PM 2.5 as well, which is the human hazard component, right? It's coming at nighttime. Most people aren't walking their dogs at midnight, so it's not that big of a risk, but there is that is a huge factor for many folks. Operational challenges. So we're very, very weather dependent, right? I mean, in the mountains, some years, we get 10 feet of snow. Some years we get 2 feet of snow. And this was on a huge year, actually. This was the 2023 year that we had record-breaking years in Utah and across most of the West. But in the springtime, when we went to burn, basically, if you see the other side here, you can't tell from the photo, but there's so much snow there that I can't even see the piles. Like when we walked through there, the piles were completely still buried in 6, 7, 8 feet of snow. We couldn't even see them. And on the side that we were burning on, you can see there was not very much snow left at all, and we were actually getting, fire, running uphill here, and you can see where we threw snow to sort of control that. So it's operationally challenging to carry out pile burning, especially in the WUI, and the environmental conditions really have a huge impact on us. And then soil sterilization and burn scars. Has anybody walked through a very recent pile burn before? Yeah. Were they rehabbing the piles? Did anybody rehab the piles?
There's definitely an attempt to, because I grew up in Flagstaff.
Okay.
It's huge in fire management, and I definitely remember, just exactly what you're saying there, piles of
Just burn scars. Yeah, so you can't, if you don't properly rehab these pile scars, which can be done by, kind of raking some of the surrounding organic matter and breaking up that hydrophobic layer that's left behind. You can rebuild that soil, but essentially we're losing all the soil in that area. So this particular area, I mean, maybe we're looking at about an acre. We're got probably 12 to 14 piles in that zone. I mean, so it's a significant footprint of that acre is completely getting scorched altogether. So if we're trying to build soil health, if we know we're going to have to continue to do these fuel mitigation treatments, is leaving scars on 10, 20% of the acreages that you guys manage, is that sustainable? Probably not in the long term. But kind of side by side, chipping and pile burning are our two best options. And what if we could have an option that sort of gave us that high control, but didn't have the smoke impacts to the community from pile burning? Or, what if we could have a process that, immediately reduces the fuel hazard and provides some operational flexibility and gives us long-term soil storage, right? I bet you guys know what I'm going to say. Biochar. So, biochar is just a very, very powerful tool that I've found from an operational perspective. And that's when I was prepping this speech, I was like, I'm going to bring up all these stats and reference all these papers and things. And I just kind of came back to the basics of these folks have very real issues when it comes to wildfire mitigation and, hazardous fuel loading, and they need real, tangible, practical solutions. And biochar is absolutely one of those solutions. We have even higher control and lower escape potential than pile burning does. We capture and build long-term carbon storage. Has anybody know about, who's heard about carbon offset credits? Yes, awesome. Carbon offset credits. So huge industry right now, especially with data centers going in all over the place. Biochar was responsible for 85% of, 95%. Thank you, John. 95% of the carbon credits that were issued last year were issued off of the production of biochar. So you all have the potential to unlock that funding source and lower your fuel mitigation. Dramatically less smoke exposure to fire professionals and the community. You'll see this. This is a drone that's literally right over top of a burning kiln, and you can see crystal clear down into it, right? There's no smoke coming out of this kiln. And yeah, let's stop harming our soil and start helping it, right? It's very precious. It's what, retains moisture and what, gives nutrients and, allows the next generation of, trees and forests to grow. Like, let's start really focusing on protecting that. So what is biochar? Biochar is a stable carbon-rich material that's made from heating woody biomass in a low oxygen environment. That's all it comes down to. It's charcoal, basically. So what does it do for you guys? Why should people care? Who knows one cool thing about biochar? Somebody yell one out.
Using biochar as remediation for mining sites.
Boom, yes, that's a great, there's tons of research about that. It wants to soak up water, it wants to soak up nutrients in a remediation scenario, it wants to soak up toxins. It's a very, very powerful tool. And it's something that's the forest has been doing naturally for thousands of years. What's left behind after a wildfire? A bunch of charred trees, right? That's the forest's way of resupplying and replenishing its carbon. And when we are carrying out these forest management practices, we're doing a good job of mimicking fire behavior, but we're not replacing that carbon in the soil. And that's really, really important. We're increasing the soil's microbial habitat, or the soil's microbial potential in there. And it pairs perfectly with the practices we're doing already. We have firefighters, we have skilled people who are carrying out these fuel breaks and fire mitigation. And yeah, we can deploy them right away tomorrow on making biochar. And it is a very powerful climate lever. It's not just disposing waste, it is a climate lever for you all to pull. So yeah, how is it made? We put it in kilns. I'll just briefly go over this is what we're talking about here is flame pyrolysis. Flame cap kiln production is what Darren's going to talk about. But just to give you guys a little bit of preface on that, when we burn a pile, we burn woody biomass. We've got the drying phase, that's off-gassing the moisture. We've got the devolatilization phase, that's where it's releasing its volatile gases, the nitrous oxide, the methane, the CO2, and that stuff is being ignited to basically cook each piece of wood from the outside in. So you can see this cross-sectional area. Each piece of wood is burning, and that's sort of baking it from the outside in. And what our goal in this process is to stop the carbon from burning. So we want to release all those volatile gases and burn them, but then keep the carbon locked in the material. So one of the ways to do that is through a big box kiln. Darren McAvoy, who's going to come up here next, has been a mentor to me over the last few years in the beginning of my career in biochar. He's the inventor of the big box kiln, and I'm super excited to have him here with me.
Thank you, Al. Good job. Thank you for your interest today and your attention. I was asked to introduce my forestry career. It actually started here 42 years ago in Summit County for the Colorado State Forest Service. I was a student at Colorado State University where I got my forestry degree and then went on to be a firefighter for 15 seasons. I was on the Flathead Hotshot crew in northern Montana, sort of a specialty fire crew. We fought fire all over the country, every western state, some eastern states, and became a prescribed burning specialist through that job. When my next job was a consulting forester in northern Idaho, where I was, again, a prescribed burning specialist. So using fire has been part of my makeup in forestry for my entire career. I think it's really important. And here's a way we can do it in a more controlled fashion. And I've been a chair. The Forest Service and the BLM asked me about 10, 15 years ago to try to find value for low-value wood. And I've worked on a lot of different projects, and biochar is my favorite one. It's where I think we have the most potential to do good. There's so much good that comes out of biochar compared to just burning piles. And I want to share some of that with you today. I represent the Utah Biomass Resources Group. I co-founded this group with a partner. I have lots of partners, including John and Alan, and I don't do anything without partners. The Biochar on Site is a group that I work with John and Alan and others, and we've produced these series of fact sheets that are available here if you want to copy that. Get your phone out now. And with these fact sheets, you'll get the basics on making biochar at home and most of what you need to do. And if you need more information, my contact information will be up at the end of this, and I'd be happy to help you start your own biochar programs in your mountain towns. See a few more people recording that. Got it? Okay. Everybody got it?
If you go to biocharansite.org, it's under the resources tab.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So I want to cover flame cap kilns. Here's a couple of the most common flame cap kilns that we use. I've used all of them extensively, but this is not the limited list. You can repurpose materials, old dumpsters, old oil tanks, all kinds of things. There's challenges and issues with doing that. I prefer to do it with fresh metal, with these sorts of materials. Oregon kiln, Al introduced briefly the Ring of Fire kiln and the big box biochar kilns. This is a Ring of Fire biochar kiln operating at this forester's property in Willow, Alaska last summer, where we're charring black spruce. So the Oregon kiln is how I got started with these low-tech methods. I had already been working in high-tech methods in biochar for 5 or 10 years before that. And I really like the Oregon kilns. They're simple, they're very plain. It's just a metal box. It's got slope size, but that's only so they can stack easier. You can fit more of them on a trailer. They're free and open source plans on my website. I'd be happy to share those with you and teach you a bit more on how to use them. It's just a single wall kiln. All the other kilns that we'll cover today are double wall kilns, and I'll talk about the advantages of those. And these weigh about 200, 250 pounds. They fit in the back of a pickup, can be carried around by 4 people. It's a good way to get started on small scale. Next, stepping up, much bigger scale, can be twice the size of the Oregon kiln, is the Ring of Fire biochar kiln. One of the advantages of them is that they lay flat, and you can see in this further photo, that's it broken down after operation up in Juneau, ready for transport. And this first photo is from Tooele, from an event we called Charpalooza we had a couple of years ago. We invited biochar producers from around the West to come show off their kilns. We like the Ring of Fire kilns because they're so modular, they're so portable. You can fit them in the back of a Subaru, doesn't take any machinery or anything like that. It's bigger than backyard scale, but it's a good farm scale approach. And they're commercially available. We're lucky to have Ray Maynard from Tartar Agricultural Products in the back. A colleague of ours, Kelpie Wilson, originally designed and started manufacturing both the Oregon kiln and the Ring of Fire kiln, and she turned that over to this national equipment manufacturer. So it's just another sample of how things are growing in a positive way. The big box biochar kiln is my sort of invention. Invention is a strong word for a box. I did not invent the box, but the process I guess I did a little bit with lots of help from the people that I've mentioned already today and others. This is my first one. I made all kinds of great mistakes with this. It was a great learning day. Everything went wrong. No, we made a lot of great char, but I realized a lot of mistakes that I made in this very first one. Most of all, for Utah fuels, it's too big. It's too heavy. It requires a great big excavator, 34,000-pound excavator to move. It requires lowboys and operators and schedules and headaches and a lot of cost. And I was all about making it accessible to farmers, ranchers, and loggers. So I redesigned this. The next day, I cut 2 feet off the top of it to get it closer to 2,000 pounds. And I kind of figure 2,000 pounds is something somebody can move around with an F-150. Any pickup, I can tow it with my Tacoma even. Anybody can rent a mini excavator and learn how to use one in an hour if they don't have equipment already. But this is sort of designed for people who already have a log loader, a skid steer, an excavator, or something like that. A ski area, for example. The next year, I was able to develop the BB12. It's a big box, 12 foot long. And this is the model that is more taken off. It's 12 by 6 by 4, so it's only 4 feet high. It's easy to see down into. It's a double wall construction. That's really important. It protects the operators and the equipment on the outside and makes for much more even heat distribution inside the kiln. So that means much higher char quality coming out of these kilns. And I'll talk a little bit about char quality in a second. So yeah, these are scaled for access. So anybody with a pickup, any pickup truck can move them around. I'm proud to say that they've been adopted in about a dozen states so far. A big part of my job is just coaching people on how to modify them and how to use them, how to build them. I'll share on my website, there's plans available. I'd be happy to share with you. But I do ask it's an open source approach, and I ask for it to be back and forth. If you make modifications to them, please share them with me. Send me pictures so I can share those modifications with other people and how they use them. It's highly configurable, we like to say. This particular one is in Jakarta, Indonesia. It's the furthest one away that I know of. I had a great event about, I'm talking to people about these all the time, and I lose track of who I talk to. And about 6 months ago, John sent me a front page newspaper article from Minneapolis featuring a big box biochar kiln. I was so excited because I had lost track. I didn't even know that they had one. And 2 weeks ago, we were at the National Biochar Conference in Minneapolis, and one of the field trips at the end of the conference featured a big box biochar kiln. That was pretty cool. And they're building 2 more. And Harvard has built one so far, and yeah, so. That's inside of a sort of an open-air building in Jakarta, yes. So they're applicable all over the world. Here's the process. The process starts by getting a burn permit. Talk to your local fire warden. Treat it just like burning piles. Many of us are working on getting permissions because this is a much safer approach than burning piles. But at this point, as far as firefighters are concerned, this is the same as burning piles. Check in with your local fire warden, and in a lot of states you need air quality restrictions, same as burning piles. We locate the kiln on a flat, relatively safe place without too much fuel around it. I've used them about that far from a building, and I wouldn't recommend that. The sides of the building started on fire. They sort of forced me into that for that workshop up in Alaska. This one that's Schweitzer Mountain Resort in northern Idaho in Sandpoint, my old home mountain for about 7 years when I lived and worked there, on a workshop we did there about 3 years ago. We load the kiln somewhat randomly with whatever feedstock that we have, and it could be a variety of sizes and feedstock types. This one I like to draw attention to. This is the invasive species Russian olive, which grows all over our river bottoms. I've done tons of Russian olive and tamarisk along the Colorado. This is within 300 feet of the Colorado River, just outside of Moab. So working on restoring riverscapes with these, with many other colleagues. So we load up the kiln, and then when it's loaded with material, we top light it. And we can just use like a propane torch or a drip torch as a common firefighting tool. Has anybody else fought fire in this group? A few of us, okay. Yeah, a common tool. Often we'll just start little campfires on top of it if we don't have those sorts of tools. So top lighting it is important, and then pretty soon a cap of flames will form over the top of that kiln. And then once it's lit, we feed it like a bonfire. We want to keep it smoking hot as possible. 950 degrees Celsius we're burning at here. And so and I lost a lot of sleep when I was designing these over excavators burning up and people burning up and that sort of thing. But I've had dozens of operators on these, and so far, no problem. You have to be careful, jump out, touch your boom, touch your hoses once in a while, make sure your machine is not overheating. But so far, I've not had any problems with that. Hotter is better. The higher quality biochar will result in a hotter fire. So here we're looking at this flame cap that we've been talking about, and it's kind of a confusing sort of idea. But once we top light it, a cap of flames forms over top of the kiln, and it consumes all the combustibles as they rise up through that column. And here we're looking just clearly at the mountainside and the forest on the other side of the kiln, and we can have conversations right across the kiln, see each other when it's operating well. And there is an art and a science to operating these. If you don't really do it right, you're not going to result in clean burn or very high quality biochar. But you can learn pretty quickly on how to do it with a little bit of instruction. And then we quench at the end. This is what's different about just having a campfire or something, is putting water on at the end. And we're looking for that point where we shift from flaming combustion to glowing combustion. You know how you're sitting around the campfire late at night and you're kind of falling asleep and the fire kind of poofs out. That's when you want to quench. And you want to preserve all those coals. Otherwise, it's going to turn to ash. In this photo, we have ash on top of that, but all the rest is black, is pure biochar all the way through this kiln, about 10 cubic yards of it. We will quench when the kiln is full, or maybe at lunchtime if we want to do 2 batches a day, maybe if it's 1 batch, just the end of shift, or when you run out of fuel. With these kilns, they have skids on them, these particular sets. And so if you're halfway through your pile, or you finish your pile, and your kiln is still operating, you can just hook it up to your pickup or a tractor and drag it. It's one of the funner parts of the job, is dragging a burning kiln through the forest. Yeah, you can just drag it to the next site, and you don't have to start again. So here's the quench, again, back in Moab, with about 300 gallons stirred up. Make sure it's all out. That's arguably the most important part of the process. And then we drain the quench water. I just have what I call a dog door, about the size of a dog door on the side of the kiln. It's all just very simple. It's not high tech. It's accessible technology is what we're shooting for. We drain our quench waters to make it lighter, and then we dump the kiln. Here I'm showing a snow quench, which in mountain towns is really a practical approach. You don't have to haul water out there in the dead of winter. It's really challenging when you're dealing with water in the winter because your hoses freeze up, your pump freezes up, and a lot easier just a snow quench. If you got a few feet and an excavator, you can just pile it up. This is on Shoshone land, just north of the Idaho line. And then we dump. Pull all the biochar out of the kiln. And I really love this photo. Al showed some photos of soil sterilization potentially, which happens in some cases, not always when you burn piles, but it's not terribly unusual either. And I love this photo because we've been burning all day long at 900 degrees Celsius. And right under the kiln, the snow is not melted. So we're obviously not doing any damage to our soil. One machine can manage multiple kilns, 3, maybe 4, depending if you have enough feedstocks in your setup. So that's a way of scaling it out. We can build these machines bigger, and my partners in Alaska have built a big box biochar kiln out of a used shipping container that's 20 feet. So I know they can get at least that big. I kind of believe they can almost get twice that size. I've never experimented with that. So it can be scaled up, but I think it's more important to think about scaling it out. So lots of kilns. If every logger and every rancher and every forester had a set of kilns like this to go with their equipment, then they wouldn't have to burn so much slash openly or chip so much material, and we'd preserve a lot more carbon, take a lot more carbon out of the atmosphere and put it in the soil. Cold trailing, this is the most important slide of the entire presentation. Make sure the fire is out. I can go on and on about mistakes we've had and big old sacks of biochar burning up overnight in places that they weren't supposed to, and giving people early days a bucket full of biochar, and they're driving home in their truck, and all of a sudden there's flames coming out of the back of their pickup, and lots of exciting times. So I run my bare hands through every square inch of material at the end of the process, and that's how I'm going to sleep that night. I know I'm not going to restart a fire. And this comes from firefighting. If I was assigned to fire by the Forest Service up on top of the mountain, and it was a 1/4 acre, I had to make sure it was out before I left a couple days later. I would run my bare hands through every square inch of that, touch every tree, every log, every stump hole. And if I can hold my hand in there, it's cool to the touch, then the fire is out. If not, the fire's not out yet. Keep stirring, keep wetting. Fire safety is a really important part of it. Always consider the weather. You're going to have 80-mile-an-hour winds that day. You might want to postpone. It's a good idea to wear personal protective gear, hard hats, avoid synthetic clothing. It tends to melt and stick to you, not a very good thing. Cotton and wool is a lot safer. Build a little fire line, just scratch a trail around it, so in case little branches fall out that are burning, they don't carry the fire out into the forest. Be ember aware in big winds. I've done this in 40-mile-an-hour winds without any problem, but be aware, embers can mechanically bounce out or blow out in heavy winds, and so just you're going to have water there to quench, so be aware and and always have a charged hose, a full hose ready to squirt, and confirm the fire is out. Feedstocks, you have a wide choice. Any western growing tree or any tree basically will do it. I've done every western conifer for sure, and lots of western hardwoods. I've done at least 20 to 30 different kinds of feedstocks. Woody feedstocks is what I'm talking about. Branches, logs. It will handle large diameter logs, no problem. You make higher quality, more consistent char with more consistent feedstock, like 10 inches, but it will consume large diameter material. And we often run these kilns sort of on a sliding scale. If you want to just get rid of fuels, just use it as a fuel reduction method that's safer than pile burning with a lot of benefits. Then you just keep loading it up. You don't worry about quenching. Let it burn down, turn to ash. Load it up at the end of the night if you got snow on the ground. Drive away. I've loaded up with 30-inch diameter logs. Come back in the morning and they're gone. So it's great for reducing material. But if you want to make char, if that's more of your priority, then quench more often. So it's a sliding scale how you operate these machines, these devices. Dry is better. You can do small diameter wet feedstock, tends to be smokier, but dry material is much more productive, much easier. Luckily, we tend to live in fairly dry climates, so that's not much of a trouble. And I've done everything, as I mentioned, from a 1/4-inch diameter to a 30-inch diameter. And it's not just a black box. I know you can't see this. I don't expect you to see this, but I just wanted to show you that we send our chars to a lab. This is sort of the gold standard lab in California, Control Soil Laboratories, and they tell us what's in that char. No, I'm not going to expect you to read these numbers, but there's two numbers I'd like to draw attention to. One is the organic carbon in here, and this came out of one of my actually a ring of fire kiln that was in the first photo, and it's 83% pure carbon. With $1 million machines, we can make it 91% pure carbon. With these devices, I've gotten up to 88% pure carbon. Pretty close, and this only cost $10,000 to build compared to millions of dollars for a high-tech machine. So the other number in here that's kind of interesting, of course, pH is worth paying attention to, and that can be modified by mixing it with compost and things like that. But there's another number in here, the hydrogen to carbon ratio, which honestly I didn't pay attention to till a couple of years ago. But these days in carbon accounting, it's a really important number. It's your durability rating. And there's the most popular carbon accounting system in Europe is Puro.Earth. They require it to be below 0.7, and our chars are coming out to be 0.4. What that means to us is that it's going to last it's got a half-life in the soil that's approaching 1,000 years. So it's going to last for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years in the soil. And I want to say there is no other way to accessibly store carbon. Take it out of the atmosphere, which the trees have done for you, and you do this process, and we put it into the soil. There's no other way to store carbon in the soil and durably than what we're talking about right here. It's the most accessible form of carbon sequestration in the world. And biochar quantity, these kilns are about 10 cubic meters or yards each one. If you can you can produce 1 to 2 full kilns per day, and one machine can operate up to three or possibly 4 kilns. So you can have 30 to 60 yards of biochar production in a day, which is a lot of char. In conclusion, I like to share this analogy of these kilns are from Brazil. I got to give a presentation similar to this at a forestry conference in Brazil a few years ago, and we discovered these kilns are spread out all over the country there. There's thousands and thousands of them. And I thought they were kind of interesting because they're similar in Utah and a lot of our western states. We have these historic beehive-shaped charcoal kilns, and they're pretty similar to that, but similar in size to like a big box kiln. And if you look at how much fuel, how much biomass all of the country of Brazil put in these sorts of kilns in 1 year, it equals the same amount of fuel that's sitting on the ground today as hazardous fuels, of stuff we want to get rid of in the woods, in all of Arizona and all of California. In 1 year, and by scaling out this technology, we can have that kind of effect and actually have an impact on this wicked problem of wildland fire. I will share construction plans. We had a link up here, but it disappeared. Just contact me, and I'd be happy to share with you my construction plans on these kilns. And this is my contact information if you want to contact me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren.
Does anybody need more time to write this down?
Okay. Yeah, Darren's been, one of the best things about joining the biochar industry has been how welcoming everybody has been. Everybody shares resources, shares knowledge. So it's just really refreshing. And Darren's been, I've looked up to Darren since I met him, and I'm super stoked to be doing this kind of work. Darren and I and John and a lot of the folks in this room are obviously believers that biochar is truly one of the methods we can use to create forests of the future. And the way that biochar does that is that it is safe, it is scalable, and it is shovel ready. We are ready to deploy big box kilns and other types of biochar production methods widely across the West. And that's kind of what I did with starting my company. And I just wanted to take a minute to go back to sort of the practicality of biochar and talk about some of the things, benefits that I see from a contractor's perspective. I mean, we've talked about this before, limited exposure to workers. This is one of my squatties from a couple of years ago. You can't really tell, but he burned his ponytail, the back of his neck, his sideburns, his beard, and his mustache one day. So pile burning, not doing biochar. Keeping people in the equipment when we're quenching things like that. Science over assumptions, right? Like I said, we can lower the carbon emissions by doing biochar production. I mean, it's up to 5 tons of CO2 equivalent per ton of input into our biochar kilns that we're seeing. And I mean, from the protecting the communities and the harmful emissions, which if you're a land manager, if you're work for the city government, something like that, this is something that's important to you. I mean, we're looking down here, flame cap kilns, we're seeing drastically lower CO2 emissions. We're seeing much lower flame caps, we're seeing much lower methane emissions and significantly lower nitrous oxide emissions, because that stuff is being burned when we are doing this process. So if you want to learn more about these stats, that table came from the Mobile Biochar Production by Flame Carbonization report that came out last year. Darren's one of the authors of it. Here's the QR code for it. Get your phones out. This talks about all the different methodologies there are out there. A Ring of Fire, Oregon kiln, big box, some of the different air curtain burners that we use. It's all in there. The fire is contained in a kiln, right? We're minimizing the risk significantly because we're not putting fire on the ground. And the quench water, right? If we're going to remote sites, we have to have water on site with us. This is actually one of my best friend's company, Hydro Tactical. He gets hired to go out on wildfire assignments during the year through the Viper system. That's a 2,500 gallon high pressure water tender. That thing can push about 200 PSI. Does anybody know how significant that is? It's a lot to push. If you imagine running a hose lay, a few thousand feet up a hill, that thing can do it. And it also has a cannon on the front of it and can shoot you. If you're standing on the road, I could hit you from about 100 feet away with that cannon while sitting in the driver's seat. So we have that available to us while we're doing these projects. So if there's people who are worried about escape, that more or less, stops people's worries. It's probably one of the most badass vehicles that you can order on a wildfire incident, to be honest. It turns everybody's heads when it rolls into fire camp. We're not leaving fire behind. Like I said, when we do pile burns, we're not putting out those piles. They are staying out there and they're smoldering for days and days, and we're putting crews out there to monitor and make sure that they're not, it's not creeping into some duff and underneath a tree and creating a whole huge mess. This is, us making some coffee up on one of our patrol days a few years back. Scalable, like this, biochar will take a little bit of extra planning. It's not a silver bullet. It won't work on steep terrain, but, complex planning in forest management is already being done. This is a case study so when I was working for Alpine Forestry in Park City, this is a 7-acre parcel. Is anybody here from Park City? No? Okay. Well, that's right next to Main Street. That's basically downtown is where that Save an Acre parcel is. And the city obviously was concerned about the smoke impact to the community because we had done pile burning around and we had some people who were upset about it. So they asked me to, hey, we can obviously pile burn if we have to, but as much as possible, let's try to minimize that. So what I did is I went in there and I, found an old mining trail that kind of went through here. Said, all right, probably about 100 feet above and below the trail is feasible to drag. So I carved out, and you can see I carved out about, almost half, 3.2 acres of the total 7 acres. I was able to carve out from being pile burned, and we were able to get a forestry chipper in there and chip all of that stuff so that we were limiting the impact to the community. So this same type of blueprint can be expanded to the biochar, to producing biochar on any project, basically. The landowners, right now I'm doing this at a small scale, and the people who I work for, my clients, see some benefits, right? They're avoiding high labor costs for like dragging material. So if we have to chip, it generally costs a lot more money if we've got to pull material for a really long ways, right? That's why we pile burn a lot of times. We're avoiding high labor costs. We're spacing out the billing for my clients. If my client, wants to do, a full project, they're not interested in burning or making biochar, then they're going to get the full bill as soon as I finish the cutting work. Whereas with biochar, I can bill them for the waste removal portion in the fall time and just bill them for the cutting in the midsummer, so they're able to space out the billing a little bit. And we're going to improve the health of the soil of that client's property. I'm likely not going to drag the biochar out of there because it's a very steep hill. You can see how the client's home is, just above us there. But I'm going to spread all that char back into the forest, right? I'm going to increase that little patch of wood's water holding capacity and nutrient microbial life capacity there. And there's benefits to me as well, right? I'm a small business. I just started this year. I'm still in my first year of operation. I can't afford a fancy chipper and an excavator. I mean, this is probably a $200,000 to a $250,000 investment that I can't afford. But I can now process biomass very fast at scale with low-tech equipment that does not cost very much money. And isn't going to break down on me too, which is another thing I don't like about chippers. But anyways, decreased risk of injury to my employees, right? All my employees are firefighters. They're very accustomed to being around heat, and it's almost like second nature to them. But nothing's going to jump out of the fire and bite them. It's not going to buck a log and, hit them the way a chipper does. And then also insurance. I mean, insurance. Has anybody ever looked into how much it costs to carry an insurance policy that covers prescribed fire in the West? Nobody? Yeah, it's upwards of $50,000 to $60,000 is how much those policies can cost, depending on revenue, right? And versus me doing biochar production, I'm looking at under $10,000 for my insurance policy. So that's a huge benefit for me. I'm able to introduce new revenue pathways, right? My forestry business can now expand out from just doing wildfire mitigation or tree removal. Now I can, somebody could have just a giant pile of biomass like my friend Eric in the back with Napa Char does for many vineyards in California, right? They replace their vines so often, they hire Eric to come in and just convert that into biomass or into biochar. We're able to engage the community, and we're creating more jobs, right? We're creating a lot more jobs. I've created now 3 jobs. I have 3 employees for that are biochar jobs, and I'm looking to make my team much bigger. There's another quick one. I mean, this is a project that we did in Pine Brook this spring. They do a chipper day every year. Is there anybody's neighborhood have a chipper day? Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's a great program, right? You're able to, the HOA or the community provides a tool that we can use, that homeowners can do the work themselves and bring that tool to, they can bring that waste down to the park, or the community can bring the chipper around the community and get rid of that waste. So I just said, hey, what if we did biochar for a couple of the days instead of running the chipper? And he said, actually, that's great, because somebody called and had rented out the pavilion that's only about 100 yards away from where this kiln sits, and they were very upset to find out they've scheduled their retirement party on the same day as the chipper day, which he was like, this would actually solve some problems for me. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, that's awesome. Over the course of over the course of 2 days, we estimate it was about 100 to 150 loads of material that people were bringing to us. This is everything from like a bundle of twigs in the back of somebody's Subaru all the way to like a big chipper or a big trailer that somebody had brought by. And we only ran the chipper for about 15 minutes over the course of those 2 days, and that was literally because we were so swamped and John was there. We were buried in material, and I was like, hey, man, we got to fire the chipper up for a minute and, give ourselves a little bit of space here. But yeah, and then, like I said, no disturbance to the nearby community. This is a project that I just did last week in Tabiona, Utah. There's X's here because I had to submit this slide and give placeholders and stuff. But we cut the material, created a fuel break around this guy's structures. You can kind of see, a little bit of what our fuel break looks like back there. He had a thick vegetation around this propane tank as well. We dragged all that material out with our excavator and burned it in a ring of fire on his property. I estimate roughly 10 trailer loads is what we would have had to use. The closest dump was about 45 minutes away. So we're looking at an hour and a half round trip that I'd have to pay somebody to bring material to the dump and then back here. And, so we were able to process all of that on site. It was about an acre, just over an acre of material that we processed in just over 2 days. And I estimate we produced around 8 yards of biochar. That was a great project. So this is another typo in my project, but biochar to nourish the forest and the soil. I'll just say that, doing this type of work in the short amount of time I've been doing it, I really see why these guys have all fallen in love with making biochar. The act of doing something that, like Darren said, could potentially exist in the forest and be providing ecosystem services to our forests for hundreds or thousands of years feels a lot better than, where I think a lot of us are, which is in this place of like, not quite panic, but maybe on the verge of it for some folks. We're like, I have this huge fuel loading problem in my community, and I have these climate initiatives, and I want to, be more sustainable, but I have to cut this material down, and I have to reduce the risk to my community. So it feels really, really good to do this kind of stuff. And I just, posed a few questions like, ask yourself, can we do better than just removing fuels? And like Darren, to Darren's point, like how else can you build lasting beneficial change on the land you manage? Is there another way? To me, there's no other way that I've seen. This is the most impactful way that I can find to use my skills to do the best job I can for the environment. And then does biochar align with other priorities on your land management strategy, right? Like with the Park City example, there's more than just the fuel reduction problem, right? There's the public perception problem. There's human health impacts to the decisions that we make in our forests. This is a QR code to my website, Circle Soil, if you're interested in seeing what biochar can actually do for you in your home. I will say I was not a plant person before I started Circle Soil, and all of my plants are doing fantastic now. So I've got a really awesome soil scientist and a great team who's been making it, but check us out. These are our collaborators, Wilson Biochar, who invented the Ring of Fire, Biochar Onsite, who you probably met at one of the tables out there. That's partially John with Go Biochar and Darren with the Utah Biomass Resource Group. Thank you. Man, that got messed up. It's al@circle-forestry.com. So you can find me. I have a pocket full of business cards too. But we'd love to take some questions from y'all. Absolutely. So if anybody hears questions, he's wondering how we can spread the char back into the soil. And my dream, if you want to hear, is to use helicopters. I think that would be amazing. But anyways, Darren has done a lot more of it. I'm going to give that one to him.
Oh, we just use whatever machines we have for making the char. If it's really small scale, I've made char with organ kilns on your forests before up at Lost Creek. But Yeah, we use, if it's small scale, Oregon kilns, we use grain scoops. If it's big box kilns, we use the excavator and just toss it back out into the forest. And, this tends to happen in the landing, which is where all the logs are dragged to. It's the most impacted part of a logging operation. And so just trying to rehab the landing, most of it stays there.
I've got one follow-up question.
Please, go.
So we've been looking.
Yes. The biomass burial is what it's generally referred to, and that's just taking whole logs and burying them more than 2 meters deep and packing soils on top of them with the idea of that's going to sequester, it's going to store that carbon long term there. I'm not a huge fan personally because it's expensive. We got to tear open a big chunk of ground, take it out of forest productivity. If it already is in forest productivity, you got to tear out stumps, all the carbon that's going to go into creating that hole and burying it back in. I work with colleagues who claim that the carbon accounting comes out in a positive way, but I'm not 100% convinced yet. I think there's better ways of doing business, and that's what we're talking about here. I think it's a much better approach, and I'd be happy to work with you to customize it for your approaches. I've worked a lot with the char boss. I imagine you've seen it break down quite a few times. I've never seen a big box kiln break down. I love the developers of the char boss are very dear, close friends of mine. I love to support them, but I think there's better alternatives in the forest, personally.
Also spray short anyways.
So let me go off of that a little bit. The Forest Service did, Deb Dumrose and others out of the Missoula Equipment Technology Center developed, they modified one to drag behind a skidder to work in the woods. I have used lime spreaders, but not out in the woods, more in mining operations where it's more refined. Ricardo, old friend, nice to see you. We keep chipping away at it, Ricardo. It's a great question, talking to people like yourself and working with folks like yourself, giving presentations like this. I'll give a presentation at the National Society of American Foresters Conference in Connecticut in a few weeks, and Association of Consulting Foresters National. Yeah, so just getting the word out and starting small. I mean, I encourage people to start with baby steps, start with an Oregon kiln or a ring of fire, step up to the big box kiln, and expand out from there. And just keep it at it. I don't have a better answer.
Yeah, I feel like, it being, biochar being so highly, what was the word you said?
Configurable.
Highly configurable. That's one that needs to stick with me. I see biochar, like I said, it's not a silver bullet. It's not gonna work in every single spot. Place-based biochar is incredible, but we also, there's other, we need to have, and start integrating this into our county landfills, right? I mean, a large portion of the Summit County landfill has, in Utah, they've got a whole giant biomass pile right next to it, and they don't know what to do with it, and the last thing they want to do is put it into the landfill, but unfortunately, in a lot of places, that's their only option, right? So we need, I think, having which would be able to go out and do it mobily, and then also place-based has its place, as well.
I should say it's 3:30 and you're excused if you need to go, but
Oh yeah, we had a question right up
I
here.
think we have the room and we're happy to
Yeah,
stay.
I think we're good. We're happy to stay.
I was curious if you have any examples or if you've ever worked on any projects that have used carbon credits.
I have not.
I have not, but there's people in the room who certainly have. Generally, carbon credits are challenging. The amount of work to document everything is really challenging. We have friends that can help with that, with apps and that sort of thing. It's at best a subsidy. It's not going to pay for everything we're doing. For each batch, it might you might get a couple $100. Eric, would you think? Introduce Eric Meyer with Napa Char in the back of the room. He does quite a bit with carbon credits. You could suggest you talk to him or John Webster afterwards about that. Thank you, sir.
Right now, there is not a huge market for it, and that's where my business, we tried to take the forestry side of things to address, integrate biochar into our forest management practices, and the Circle Soil is really, like I said, in order to create a sustainable economy around the production of biochar, we need to create demand. Right now, biochar in bulk is extremely cheap in the U.S., and so it's hard to build a business on selling yards and yards of biochar. Like I as a small producer, I can't rely on revenue of selling that biochar unless that's why we came up with Circle Soil. We're mixing it into a ready-made product that we can sell, on stores, and people can pick it up in their, local, nursery, and then educate them. Because I think a lot of what we've seen in American capitalism is educating the public is done around creating a product, right? So having a product that tells people, teaches people about biochar is my goal, to build that demand, and then hopefully in 10 years, it pencils out to get the carbon credits and sell the biochar for a local municipal green waste dump to start making biochar. That's the goal.
Emerging markets, we like to say.
Yeah.
That kind of piggybacks off my question. We talked about
Yeah, I'm going to give that question to John because he actually does a lot with compost.
Yeah, so biochar and compost, it's friends with benefits. So it really works out. It's beautiful. So you add up to 20% biochar by volume and with your compost, and it accelerates the maturation rate. It increases so anytime you're on an operation, cattle, compost, any of that, when you smell anything, that's money going out the door. The biochar holds that in. It works together. It builds the microbial communities. It creates this beautiful, rich compost. It's fantastic. The largest composter in Utah, I was working with him, and after he told me it was snake oil, he had biochar in his compost the following year, and that compost sold for an extra $30 per cubic yard to market. So yeah, if you put it in, let it overwinter, sell it the next year. Real quick, I do want to touch on landfills, is that when you can create your own biochar on site, regardless of the mechanism, when you add that to your landfill, it helps as a mitigation material for the emissions that come off. So it helps reduce that methane, reduces the nitrous oxides, and it also helps with the slope stability. So there's a ton of benefits, but yeah, you can help control the leachate. And then real quick, we have biocharonSite.org. We have a monthly meetup the first Wednesday of every month. We have a network of practitioners. We cut a lot of the questions that you're asking. We cover these topics. So it's an all-volunteer group. It's totally free to join. We have the website. Alan and Darren's PowerPoint is going to be posted today under the resources on that site, so you'll be able to come back to it, and we're recording it as well. So you had a question? Yeah, when you're dry, it's going to be a little more difficult. It's not going to accelerate quite as much. So you might bump it up with some like EM1 or some other type of inoculant.
I don't know exactly what they do, but
Yeah.
they have like two things sitting side by side.
Yeah, and
We have some in Park City at 7,000 feet that work just fine.
Yeah.
I know it's a little lower, but. Yeah, feedstocks do matter. For instance, hardwoods tend to be lower pH, conifers higher pH. My personal point of view on feedstocks is we're surrounded by them. We have so many feedstocks to get rid of here. And I think it's great CSU is doing work with coconut shells and husks and stuff, but we have a local problem of too much feedstock, so that's what we focus on mostly.
Right. And when we're talking about adoption of carbon smart practices, hauling something in doesn't make any sense from an LCA. And I get asked on a regular basis from research students, what should I be doing? I say, number one, use the biochar research glossary, so that way we're all speaking the same language. Number two, figure out what is the most commercially adoptable for the region that you're in and developing this project for. It's great to get into the weeds and do these super high-tech biochars, but if you can create biochar on site from things that you know are already problems, and you can create products and services around it, that is the fastest path to decarbonization of industries like forestry, construction, metallurgy, and more. So it's all about understanding. And real quick, manure biochar has high nutrient content. It acts a lot like a fertilizer. This type of biochar is excellent in odor control mechanisms for CAFOs and other operations, poultry, all of it. Reduces the odors, happier animals, healthier animals, fewer pests, more healthy environment for the humans that are maintaining these systems. So again, not a magic bullet, but a practical, simple material. Mother Nature did millions of years of research and development on this, right? It's not direct air caption, doesn't have the lights and whistles right now that allows the money to come in. But what we have is we have the advantage that we can scale out. Everyone in this room can make a difference, and that's a powerful message. I mean, these guys, it's fun. It builds such a sense of community. It's really just an enjoyable process.
Do we have any more questions? Sir?